This month on the World Sailing Show, the Mule meets Airbus, cat drama in the Caribbean, lifting a ton of weight, and a perfect Arabian racecourse. But first, how do you control the world's fastest raceboat? The build-up to the inaugural SailGP event in Sydney had been huge. The new fleet of F50 cats were hot property. Originally built for the 2017 America's Cup, they were already eye-wateringly quick. But now, having been stripped down, redesigned and turbocharged, these identically matched machines were even quicker. Much has been made of how advanced this new breed is. The F50 doesn't just nudge the performance bar a little higher, it bursts through into new territory. But what is difficult to see from the outside is how complex these boats are on the inside, as the Australian team skipper explains.
This is my part of the boat, the steering wheel. Here I have these two twist grips which control the leeward daggerboard rake. That helps me to fly the boat and keep the boat up on the hydrofoils. On the hub of the wheel here we've got quite a few control systems. They control different amounts of the differential in the rudders and the rake of the rudders. I also have a lever here which controls the gain rate of the foils, how quickly the foils move underwater. Now we're in the wing trimmers station. This is where Kyle Langford sits. So we have the wing winch here, which he's controlling with a sheet to the wing. Here we have the twist function. This controls the twist to the wing. Here we have the inverters. This inverts the wing from starboard to port. Daggerboard up, inverter hold, which holds the wing in shape, and then he can adjust the camber so he can change the shape of the wing. The wing trimmer has his hands full. He's holding the wing sheet, he's adjusting twist, so he needs these foot buttons to adjust jib sheets, to adjust daggerboards, and also he has a twist function there if he can't get his hand to this one. This is a flight controller station. This is where Jason Waterhouse sits. Whether he wants to see the rudder rakes, the daggerboard rakes, how we're doing on target speeds, he's got all the sorts of different pages of information here which he can look at. And then right here he's got his control panel and his joystick. The control panel, he can change all different modes. He can change how fast the daggerboards fire down, how quickly they come up, how quickly the rudders swap from tack to tack. He's got all sorts of different controls here. Also, you'll see here there's a little patch on the buttons. This is a kind of way of braille. When he needs to hit this button, he actually can't look at it. He's doing another function, he's trying to fly the boat. Here we have the joystick. This is what the flight controller uses to fly the boat in maneuvers. In general, at the moment, the way we're sailing the boat is the helmsman is flying the boat and the flight controller is controlling the boat in maneuvers. He can rake the different daggerboards around the boat with just using this joystick. He also has control over the rudders with the top of the joystick here. This is the grinding cockpit. This is where Sam Newton and Kai Hurst are stationed. The grinders on this boat trim the sails. We now have a battery pack which does hydraulic functions like bringing the boards up and down and raking the daggerboards. These guys really have to concentrate on angle of heel and making sure we're trimmed to the optimum setting. This is the pod of the boat. This is where the battery's kept and the pump which controls the hydraulic functions.
While many of the controls are hidden, the F50's power plant, its foils and wing are on display. But these are also more complicated than they might look.
Here we have our hydrofoils. Right here we have our light airfoils, so they have a bigger wing. That's a 2.9 metre wing on these ones. It creates more lift and so you can sail in lighter airs. Over there are our high speed boards. It's about a 2.4 metre wing, so less lifting area than our light air boards. We sail them about 12 knots and above. Here we have the rudders. We're allowed to have two sets of elevators, a light air set and a heavy air set, and we're allowed one vertical, which is the main shaft of the rudder. We'll chuck on the light air elevators because they have a little more area, lifting area, for the lighter winds. And when the wind gets up, when we put on our high speed boards, we'll put on the high speed elevators. They're a little less area and they can go faster. Here we have our wing. Wings are our power source. They provide the power to get the boat to propel forward. We trim it like a pilot would trim an aeroplane wing, but unlike a pilot, we're trying to get maximum thrust out of this at all times. We're not just trying to do a safe flight, we're trying to go as fast as we can in that flight. In our setup, as you can see, we have a table setup. It's very complicated, there's a lot going on here, controlling camber arms, controlling twist functions.
But Slingsby's knowledge goes further than simply knowing the boat inside out. Despite a slow start to the first race, his team went on to win 2 of the 3 races on the opening day. Keen to prove that their victories were no fluke, they delivered a repeat performance on day 2. This time, they were pitch perfect at the start, and 20 minutes later, delivered an easy win. The second race on the second day was equally impressive, although this time, there were some closer calls. And then came the finale, the match race against Nathan Outteridge aboard Japan. Another tight but perfect start for Australia, played out into a commanding lead, and the win that really mattered to take victory at the first ever Sail GP event.
We don't take losing lightly, and that first race really shot us into gear, and I expect a lot of myself, I expect a lot of these guys, and these guys delivered today, and I'm happy to say I delivered, and yeah, we got the win and we won 3 races straight. It's amazing.
Yet aside from the competition, there was another talking point down under: the speed of the boats. Over 30 knots in just 10 knots of wind, the F50 had delivered just what it had said on the tin. First evidence that these are indeed the fastest sailing racing boats in the world. Next stop, San Francisco in May for round 2. There was drama before the first gun had been fired in this year's Caribbean 600 race. The crew of Argo had been out training against arch rivals Maserati. Both were sailing high-performance 70-foot trimarans. Both had rock-star crews with stacks of experience, including solo round-the-world record holder Francois Gabard aboard Argo. But even the best aren't invincible.
We was in the back of Argo, and we had still the Jenaker up, but then the wind picked up and it was time to close the wind, so we closed the Jenaker, and then we see them right there capsize. We didn't understand what's happened to them.
It was quite some experience. We used Traveller main sheet super fast as the bow went just sort of dipped, but that wasn't enough. I think the foil probably, once you get down to a certain angle, then the foil probably works in reverse and again sucking you down more.
With 48 hours to go, the crew of Argo were already racing the clock in their bid to get to the start. For the rest of the 84-boat fleet, the countdown provided time to prepare mentally for the 600-mile race around 11 Caribbean islands.
It's a sprint, so you know you have to push very, very hard. It's a very challenging race physically, it's a very challenging race mentally.
We're all going to be racing within sight of each other as well, which makes it even more exciting.
Of course, it's a lot of breeze, but I think it's just a matter of a lot of people don't have enough experience in that kind of condition. It looks all very easy, sailing in the Caribbean, it's nice and warm, but if it starts blowing, then normally people don't go out sailing.
We've sailed together a lot. There's only one new crew member, so it's very much like a big family.
You have to be a good sailor, excellent sailor, but that's one part. I really think about the dynamics in our team and want to make sure we are doing right things, but we want to do it in a good way, in a good spirit. That's really important.
The old adage about to finish first, you first have to finish applies here in Spades. It's incredibly demanding, and I think people love it. That's why they keep coming back, and it's a huge challenge. It's one of those that people love to take off and say, I've done it, I've completed it, and they enjoy it for sure. I'll be quite sad when I see them going off, waving them goodbye, and wish I was there with them. And we hope that they get round the course safely, and yeah, wish them all the best, and we'll look forward to welcoming them back during the week.
Classic conditions prevailed at the start. For most, the race would take around 3 days. But for those looking at setting a new record, the target was just under 32 hours. Last year had been fast, but could this year be quicker? The answer came just under 31 hours later, as Maserati crossed the line, to take 1 hour off the previous record. Argo was just 7 minutes behind. It had been a blisteringly fast trip.
Well, this was a very nice race. We have fantastic speed, reaching, tight reaching, pretty hot, and we was able to fly a little bit. That was very good. It was a great fight until the last 5 minutes.
I was amazed we got to the start line, and then it's miraculous that we got to the finish as well. It was really incredible. It's very satisfying when you plan something, executed it, it's successful. But this is more spontaneous and unpredictable, and very bonding as a team. To say, we went through a capsize together.
I'm really proud of all of this team, all what they did, and I'm thinking that a sailor needs to capsize at least once in his life. I did it. I hope it's just done.
13 hours later, Wizard, a Volvo Open 70, crossed the line to take line honours in the IRC monohull class.
This race was kind of interesting because we had two littler, 40-foot or less catamarans following us around the course, and it's hard to get away from those things. They're really, really fast. And we went back and forth, I think, with Fujin pretty much the whole race, and they finished right behind us.
Well, we definitely kept our eyes on them, and if they were ahead, we could see what was coming in the wet weather, and if they were behind, we tried to keep them there.
Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet continued their charge towards the finish. Tala would take second overall in IRC. Lady Mariposa third. The battle in the Class 40s had been particularly intense.
It was very stressing because, as you saw, we were not the quickest on some legs, and the others, they had troubles on others, so it was always one in front of the others. We were battling with Aina and from time to time with Lamotte, who was the first going to Guadeloupe. We were really under pressure all the time. So I'm pretty amazed by the crew that I had.
4 days after the start, the entire fleet had finished. Now it was time to party. Still to come, tight battles off the Arabian coast, and how to lift a huge weight in seconds. But first, why the Mule and Airbus make a good team. When the Mule flew, heads turned as American Magic launched their trial horse for the next America's Cup. Now the team has announced another big step with news of a new partner who are already experts in flight, Airbus. So what do the aviation giants bring to the campaign?
Where do you start? Well, there's flight control. We're sailing a flying boat. There's simulation. There's foil and foil tip deformation. There is understanding when the boat flies and the foil deforms, how all those bits and pieces interact. And then there's a simple matter of using an airplane technology to help the sailors develop a sailboat that, for all intensive purposes, is flying.
We have been starting this official innovation partnership with American Magic, and we are very happy to be there. It's a very open-minded team with best engineer in the world dealing with building, designing yachts. And what we are just trying to do is support this effort, acting really as a team and bringing our competence to make this a success.
In the team, I'm basically working in the mechatronic group, so everything dealing with control and hydraulic power. the actuators. So do we have to go through electrical ones or hydraulic ones? I'm also involved in all the software development. So the software to drive all these actuators.
Those boats now are flying, and managing the flight is actually what we are really competent in doing. And this time with this new monohull flying and on foiling wings, you have to design those wings as we design aircraft wings. And being embarked in that journey with the team right from the beginning, it's really very powerful, because obviously you have to build up that trust and collaboration.
We have to guess and to find the way to deal with this boat. We start clearly from scratch, so quite interesting and innovating project. People in this team are coming from all the parts of the world, and so it's just a great melting pot from people from design, from sailing, from shore teams, and from Argentina, France, United States, Australia. It's really a human experience, quite nice to live.
The power of both engineering team joining together with different background and also this very international setup of the team is really something we are used to within Airbus.
You know, something that was very important early on was to have Airbus as an intimate part of the team. So they don't come in later in the piece as we're developing and come in with all the great ideas that they would have. They've started from the get-go. While we represent them, and we're incredibly proud of that relationship, they are an integral part of the team and of the family.
But while teams keep their deeper design secrets under wraps, there are some areas where they're working together. Since the radical design for the next America's Cup boats was revealed, there have been plenty of technical hurdles. Not least the mechanism for the giant swinging arms and their foiling attachment. Here, teams are sharing the load when it comes to the technology. Challenger of record, Luna Rossa, is responsible for producing the composite arms, while Defenders, Emirates Team New Zealand, will be supplying the canting mechanisms for all the teams. As project manager Peter Thomas explains, these mechanisms are complex and highlight the scale of the task of making a 75-foot monohull fly.
So these are all the components for the hydraulic system. This is the main valve block, which we've actually named a storage cylinder. So we've got the manifold on the bottom of this custom-built cylinder here. This has a piston inside of it, and this enables us to take the oil from the main cylinders and very, very quickly and put it into this storage cylinder. This is here is our tank. This is holding the main source of the oil, and this is pressurized on one side. And then we have the Beckhoff PLC and the motor controller below it, which takes the power from the battery and converts it into a voltage that the motor can use, which is connected through a coupling to the hydraulic pump. The motor on its own, the motor and pump on their own are not powerful enough to actually give us the pressure that we need. So we pre-charge the accumulator, and that enabled us to move the arm in the rapid movement in about 3 seconds. The big gas cylinder here is just a pre-charged bottle for the accumulator. You can see the tank is now being emptied because we're now refilling the accumulator just after we've done that lift. As soon as this is recharged, we could do another lift. So it takes 15 seconds to charge it, and then we're ready to tack the boat.
The full-sized canting test rig was a reminder for all as to how ambitious this project is. Not even the teams were quite ready for what they were about to see.
We've got the team reps coming down, and they're all going to come to see the 4-can system test tube that we've put together. They've seen the drawings, the schematics and the parts lists, so now they can actually see the thing in real life.
It's pretty cool to see the thing working. It's pretty impressive to see that thing, like 4-meter arm and 1 ton at the end going up and down that fast.
Well, the scale for sure is something that people have no idea about. They will realize when they will really see it. It's certainly impressive, and the work is not less impressive.
They've done a good job of thinking about what all the teams need and how they're going to be putting it in the boat and maintaining it. So it's, yeah, although it's a competitor in this area, it's a collaborator. So it's good.
Part of putting the system together is it's got to function. It's got to be reliable. You can imagine with these big yachts racing around at these high speeds, when they go for a manoeuvre, the system's got to work. There's over 400 components, so we've got to make sure that every time they hit the button and they want to drop it, it drops, and when they raise it, they raise it.
I'm glad that we did a one design system for that. It's going to make the boat way safer than if every team would have fought to save a few kgs on every part of such a system. I think it's a good call from everyone.
Kind of really showed me the size of these boats and what we're going to be working with. It's the first real example of a full-scale setup, and the boats are going to be pretty big. It's going to be cool. It's all about going big and going fast, so I think it's a good thing.
When you imagine the 75-foot yacht with one of these on each side, and then you imagine another 75-foot yacht next to that, and they're going to be racing around the water at 40 or 50 knots, it's going to be impressive, especially the start. It's going to be incredible.
We can't wait to get those things assembled and get those boats sailing, you know. Yeah, we look forward to sail those boats and compete.
And the plan is for that moment to come later this summer. When the EFG Sailing Arabia the Tour switched to multi-hulls last year, the pace stepped up.
1, 2.
As the event changed gear.
Ça déroule pas devant, attention, laf.
Last year's move to a fleet of 10 DM-24 trimarans provided some spectacular racing. Set along Oman's stunning 2,000-mile coastline, this year saw the route reversed as the fleet started in Muscat to work their way south via a series of coastal and inshore races to the finish in Salalah. The opening race delivered a punchy curtain raiser to the 2019 event and served up 3 different winners in the opening races, a clue to the intensity of the competition that was to come over the next 2 weeks. After day 1, it was the young French team on Golfe du Morbihan that were top of the leaderboard with 2 wins. 2 of the favourites, EFG Bank, skippered by offshore rock star Frank Camus, and last year's winners, Team Beja Flore, finished the day further down the results board than anticipated. Both had been disqualified for jumping the start of the last race of the day.
For me, the first time racing with the boat, so I have to find the good move with the boat and the good feeling.
Then came the first of the coastal races, Sur to Ras Al Had and return. After 2.5 hours, it was Robin Follin's Cheminée Pujula that took the win, just 15 seconds ahead of Stevie Morrison's Oman Shipping Company.
We take the lead at just before the last leg, 200 meters before the last mark, and after it was straight to the finishing line. So a very good race and very interesting because we never stopped to give the max.
Although Morrison knows the area and the boat well, he accepted that his team still had a challenge ahead.
We need to be a little bit more dynamic with how we move the sheets, and you know, there's an Englishman, Frenchman and an Omani on the boat, so there's 3 different languages, and in those clutch moments just the small details of your words can make a big difference.
From Sur, it was time to hit the road as the event moved 285 kilometres south to Mazira Island. As racing got underway, the pack was shuffled once again with 2 more teams, CER Geneva and Seaflotech, adding victories to their score sheets.
Yes, it will be close during all of this week for sure, and I think the most important is to focus on our team because the championship will be long.
With last year's victory under his belt, Valentin Belle was the favourite, yet he was taking nothing for granted.
After this stage in Mazira, we are very happy because before that we haven't a good feeling, the boat is slow, and now we have found some things. We refined our original speed, our way of sailing, So we are very happy about that. So today, a good day, I think.
Next stop, Dokkum. Here, sparkling conditions delivered another spectacular showcase of racing, along with a further shuffle of the leaderboard as Beja Florey started to find their form. Despite being 7th and over 3 minutes behind Stevie Morrison's Oman Shipping in the 21-mile Mazira coastal race, Bellay's French team pulled back to win the double-point scoring race, their first of the tour. Meanwhile, wins for Cyclotech and Cheminée Poujoulat in the stadium races kept the points gap close at the top of the table. But 6 quick-fire in-port races saw the tables turned once again, with Bellay's Beja Florey taking a narrow overall lead. The penultimate stage in Dokkum saw strong wins for the inshore racing. And after 6 races, Bellay's team were stretching their overall lead.
The condition today is very difficult. A lot of wind, but a wind very shifty. And it's very difficult to read the gust on the water.
So, as the circus rolled into the final venue, a showdown in Salalah was in store. The inshore racing started in light conditions where Beja Florey delivered a masterclass performance. Behind them, Follin and Morrison were battling for the podium. But when it came to the overall trophy, neither could stop Bellay's team from taking the win for the second time.
We are very happy to win it for a second time this year in Salalah. It's amazing.
So while the overall trophy went to the same team for the second year running, no one was in any doubt as to how much tighter the racing had become.